Self-worth is the silent foundation upon which every decision, every interaction, and every experience in life rests. It is not a currency that can be borrowed or earned from the approval of others. It is a quiet, unwavering truth that exists inside, beyond the noise of the outside world. To understand self-worth is to recognize that it is inherent, that it is not contingent on beauty, success, relationships, or the fleeting opinions of those who cross your path. A woman who truly knows her value does not negotiate it for attention, validation, or temporary comfort. She carries it like a flame within her, steady, unshakable, illuminating her actions and choices with clarity and purpose. Every time she is faced with a situation that threatens to diminish her sense of self, she responds not with fear or desperation, but with quiet, resolute awareness, knowing that her inner truth cannot be compromised without her consent. The world is filled with subtle pressures designed to make her question her worth. A passing comment, a societal expectation, a glance that measures her against someone else's standards, all of these are attempts to persuade her that she must change to fit a mold that was never meant for her. Yet the smart woman sees beyond these illusions. She understands that the value of her existence is not measured by how many people like her, how often she is chosen, or how closely she conforms to external ideals. Her worth is not a reflection of her relationship to others, it is a reflection of her relationship to herself. Every morning she greets herself not with judgment, but with recognition, acknowledging the fullness of her being, the strengths, the vulnerabilities, the contradictions that make her uniquely whole. In this acknowledgement, she finds a power that is impossible to take away because it is not dependent on approval, and it cannot be bargained away for acceptance. Self-worth is also the compass that guides her choices. In relationships, she does not settle for attention that is inconsistent, affection that is conditional, or promises that are empty. She understands that the way someone treats her is a mirror of how they see her, but it does not define her. She watches for patterns, not words, because she knows that actions are the true language of respect and integrity. When someone attempts to play games, manipulate emotions, or test her patience, she does not respond with panic or compromise. She simply observes, she recognizes, and she aligns her energy with what honors her value. She knows that to give herself fully to someone who does not see her worth is to diminish the very flame she carries, and she refuses to do that. Her worth is the measure by which she decides who enters her space, and it is not for negotiation or compromise. In the pursuit of self-worth, she also cultivates discernment. She becomes sensitive to the energies around her, recognizing what nourishes her spirit and what depletes it. She does not confuse attention with love or flattery with respect. She understands that to maintain her sense of value, she must set clear boundaries, not out of fear of rejection, but out of reverence for her own being. Boundaries are not walls. They are statements of clarity, invitations to others to meet her where she stands, not where they wish her to bend. By setting these boundaries, she teaches the world how to honor her, and she teaches herself that her sense of self cannot be diluted by circumstance, or circumstance alone cannot dictate her happiness. Her self-worth is also deeply connected to self-care, not the shallow kind that is performed for the sake of appearances, but the profound kind that nourishes her mind, body, and soul. She invests in herself, her knowledge, her growth, her passions, not because she seeks recognition, but because she recognizes that to honor her inner self is the truest act of devotion. She does not apologize for needing time, for seeking solitude, or for pursuing the life that feels right to her. In this way, she becomes an embodiment of integrity, a living example of what it means to respect oneself. She carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that she does not need to shrink to make space for others, and that her presence in its fullness is enough. There is also a profound resilience that grows from unwavering self-worth. Challenges, rejections, and disappointments may touch her, but they cannot shake the foundation of who she is. She learns to differentiate between critique that serves growth and criticism that seeks to diminish. She is not defensive or reactive. She simply returns to her center, reaffirming the truth that her value is independent of external circumstance. In moments of doubt, she remembers that her worth existed before approval, before love, before recognition, and that it will continue to exist regardless of how the world responds. This resilience allows her to navigate life with both grace and courage, knowing that her energy is precious and that it should never be surrendered lightly. Self-worth also manifests in the way she approaches her dreams and ambitions. She does not chase validation through achievements or comparisons. She pursues her goals because they resonate with her inner calling. Success for her is measured not by applause, but by alignment with her authentic self. When opportunities arise, she evaluates them not by how they may impress others, but by how they honor her abilities, her passions, and her truth. She is unapologetically ambitious, not out of ego, but out of recognition that she deserves to inhabit the fullness of her potential. Every choice, every step forward, is an expression of self-respect, and each decision reinforces the unshakable belief that her worth is inherent and absolute. Clarity is the quiet compass that guides a smart woman through the chaotic currents of life. In a world that often thrives on confusion, deception, and the blurring of intentions, she chooses to see with precision, to move with understanding, and to act with discernment. Clarity is not merely the absence of confusion, it is the presence of awareness, the ability to distinguish between what serves her growth and what diminishes her energy, between what is authentic and what is illusory. A woman who values clarity does not allow herself to be entangled in games, in ambiguity, or in situations where intentions are unclear. She understands that confusion is a tool often used to manipulate, to control, and to create unnecessary attachment, and she refuses to participate in its quiet violence. Her life is a space where clarity is a daily practice, cultivated through observation, reflection, and intentional alignment with truth. In relationships, clarity is the lens through which she perceives reality. She does not confuse fleeting attention with genuine interest, nor does she mistake inconsistent behavior for affection. She watches patterns, not moments, recognizing that consistency is the language of authenticity and reliability. A text that comes late or a promise that is repeated but never fulfilled speaks volumes to her, not in judgment, but in recognition of truth. She does not allow her emotions to override her awareness. Where others may be swept by uncertainty, she pauses, she reflects, and she sees the situation as it is, not as she wishes it to be. In doing so, she preserves her energy and her dignity, refusing to chase someone who has not shown the willingness to meet her where she stands. Clarity becomes a shield, protecting her from unnecessary pain and preserving the sacredness of her heart. In life and career, clarity becomes the foundation of purpose. She is aware of her goals, her priorities, and the boundaries that support her journey. She does not scatter herself across distractions that do not serve her mission, nor does she allow the opinions of others to blur her direction. A smart woman understands that to live without clarity is to drift endlessly, to expend energy in directions that do not lead to fulfillment. She defines her intentions with precision and measures her actions against the alignment with her inner truth. Decisions are not rushed, they are considered, weighed against the backdrop of her values and her understanding of what is necessary. Clarity allows her to navigate challenges without panic, to respond rather than react, and to maintain a sense of calm amid chaos. Clarity also governs the way she communicates. She chooses words that are honest, direct, and purposeful. She does not hint at her feelings or hide her truth behind vagueness, knowing that ambiguity can be manipulated and misinterpreted. In her conversations, there is no room for guessing, for testing, or for games of perception. She speaks with intention because she respects both herself and the person she engages with. In doing so, she creates a space where mutual understanding can flourish, where boundaries are respected, and where connection is genuine rather than performative. She also recognizes that some people cannot or will not operate with the same transparency, and she does not attempt to force clarity upon them. Instead, she chooses to protect her own energy and maintain her equilibrium. The cultivation of clarity is also an inward practice. She looks within and distinguishes between thoughts that arise from fear, desire, or insecurity, and those that are grounded in wisdom and truth. She reflects upon her reactions, her attachments, and her patterns, understanding that confusion often originates internally before it appears externally. By observing her mind and emotions with calm attention, she is able to disentangle illusion from reality, desire from necessity, and attachment from alignment. Meditation, journaling, and self-inquiry become tools through which she refines her perception, creating a steady clarity that informs every choice she makes. She learns to sit with uncertainty without surrendering to it, to watch the swirling currents of life without being swept away, and to recognize that the root of confusion is often within, waiting to be illuminated by awareness. Clarity is also a form of empowerment. In a world that encourages compromise, she maintains discernment. She recognizes when someone's intentions are not aligned with her well-being and withdraws without resentment, knowing that confusion is not a challenge to overcome, but a signal to protect herself. She understands that living without clarity leads to compromises that diminish the spirit and deplete the soul. When she chooses clarity, she chooses freedom from manipulation, from emotional exhaustion, and from the endless questioning that arises when truth is hidden or distorted. She becomes someone whose presence is not defined by drama or misunderstanding, but by a quiet authority, a calm certainty that radiates through her actions, words, and decisions. Even in moments of doubt, clarity allows her to act with measured intention. She does not ignore uncertainty, but she does not become trapped by it. She gathers information, she observes behavior, she trusts her intuition, and she waits for alignment before committing herself. In doing so, she preserves the integrity of her energy and ensures that her responses are rooted in truth rather than reaction. She understands that confusion is often an invitation to deeper awareness, a call to see more clearly, to inquire more deeply, and to rise above the superficial layers of circumstance. Through clarity, she maintains sovereignty over her life. She refuses to allow others to manipulate her decisions, her emotions, or her sense of reality. She does not chase explanations or plead for transparency. She simply honors her perception, her intuition, and her understanding. She chooses to operate from a place of wisdom rather than impulse, to respond with alignment rather than fear, and to navigate life with a steady presence that others may not always comprehend but cannot diminish. Patience is the quiet strength that lies beneath every action, every decision, and every choice made with awareness. It is not a passive waiting, nor is it a surrender to time without purpose. True patience is an active force, a presence of mind that allows life to unfold in its own rhythm without the need for force, manipulation, or control. A woman who embodies patience understands that the world moves according to patterns often invisible to the eye, and that her role is not to rush, but to align, to listen, and to act with timing that respects the natural course of events. In a society that celebrates speed, immediate gratification, and constant movement, she recognizes that power is found not in haste, but in the careful cultivation of restraint, awareness, and enduring attention to what truly matters. Patience begins with self-trust. She trusts that her worth, her capabilities, and her presence are sufficient, and she does not allow the external noise of pressure or expectation to dictate her pace. When opportunities arise, she discerns whether they are aligned with her path or merely distractions, dressed as chance. She does not rush to fill emptiness or seek instant results because she understands that the deepest, most lasting outcomes are born from careful timing and consistent, deliberate effort. Patience is not a delay, it is a commitment to the integrity of her journey, to honoring both the process and the destination with equal reverence. In relationships, patience is an expression of wisdom. A woman who knows the power of patience does not react impulsively towards actions or moods. She understands that emotions, both hers and those of others, require space to settle, clarity to emerge, and reflection to be understood. She does not chase love that is hesitant, attention that is inconsistent, or promises that are empty. Instead, she observes, she waits, and she allows patterns to reveal themselves naturally. In doing so, she protects her heart from being entangled in illusions and preserves the energy required to nurture connections that are genuine, reciprocal, and aligned with her values. Patience gives her the ability to see beneath appearances, to recognize intentions without the distortion of fear or desire, and to act in ways that are grounded rather than reactive. Patience is also a form of self-mastery. It requires the ability to manage impulses, to temper immediate desires with long-term awareness, and to resist the temptation of instant gratification. A woman who cultivates patience understands that every action has consequences and that premature decisions often lead to regret or loss. She does not allow frustration, anxiety, or impatience to dictate her behavior, recognizing that these are temporary storms that cloud judgment and obscure truth. Through patience, she develops the capacity to navigate complexity, to withstand uncertainty, and to remain steady amid the shifting tides of life. Her presence becomes an anchor, not only for herself but also for those around her, radiating a calm authority that commands respect without force. In the pursuit of personal growth, patience is the fertile soil in which transformation takes root. She does not expect instant mastery, rapid change, or immediate recognition. She understands that growth is gradual, cumulative, and often invisible in the early stages. Each step, each decision, each moment of discipline contributes to a foundation that is unshakable precisely because it is cultivated over time. Patience allows her to endure setbacks without despair, to learn from mistakes without self-condemnation, and to remain committed to her vision, even when progress is imperceptible. In this way, patience becomes not a passive state, but an active engagement with the process of becoming, a recognition that time is an ally rather than an adversary. Patience is also the guardian of clarity. When she encounters uncertainty, ambiguity, or challenges, she does not succumb to panic or impatience. Instead, she creates space to observe, to reflect, and to understand. She knows that the pressure to act too quickly can cloud judgment, distort perception, and lead to outcomes that are misaligned with her values. By practicing patience, she maintains a steady mind, a clear perspective, and a measured approach, allowing her to act with precision and discernment when the moment is truly right. She recognizes that in the dance of life, timing is as important as intention, and that acting prematurely is often more destructive than waiting with awareness. Even in moments of emotional turbulence, patience reveals its power. She does not seek immediate resolution to discomfort, nor does she attempt to control others to create the illusion of stability. She sits with her feelings, observes their presence, and allows them to pass with awareness. In doing so, she cultivates resilience, emotional intelligence, and an inner peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. Patience teaches her to trust the unfolding of life, to surrender the illusion of control, and to recognize that waiting is not weakness, but an expression of profound strength and understanding. Patience is also a reflection of respect for herself, for others, and for the natural order of life. She honors her own process, allowing herself the time needed to heal, to grow, and to evolve. She respects the journeys of others, understanding that transformation cannot be forced, caused, or rushed. She aligns herself with the rhythms of life rather than resisting them, cultivating a sense of harmony that permeates her actions, relationships, and intentions. In this alignment, she discovers the true essence of power, the ability to move deliberately, to act from a place of understanding rather than impulse, and to trust that the forces of time, patience, and consistency are her greatest allies. Intuition is the quiet voice that whispers beneath the clamor of thought, a subtle yet powerful guide that a smart woman learns to trust above all else. It is not born of logic or reason, nor is it dictated by external validation or societal expectation. It is the deep knowing that emerges from the alignment of mind, body, and spirit, a sense of clarity that cannot be argued with, debated, or dismissed. A woman who honors her intuition understands that life is rarely straightforward, that circumstances are layered, and that appearances often conceal deeper truths. She does not wait for others to provide answers, nor does she rely solely on advice or opinions. Instead, she turns inward, cultivating a sensitivity to the subtle signals that arise within her, the stirrings of the heart, the tension in the body, the quiet pool of awareness, and she allows these signals to guide her decisions, her relationships, and her path. Intuition is the lens through which she discerns authenticity. In a world where deception can be subtle, where people can mask intentions behind charm, words, or performance, she listens first to what cannot be spoken. She notices the small inconsistencies, the shifts in energy, the hesitation behind certain statements, and the way actions diverge from promises. These are not trivial observations. They are the language of truth, spoken in a frequency that only a cultivated awareness can detect. She does not need explicit confirmation to recognize dishonesty or misalignment, because her intuition has already sensed it. It is a compass that points toward integrity and away from manipulation, a force that helps her navigate complexity with grace rather than naivety. Intuition is also a guide through uncertainty and risk. When faced with choices that are unclear or situations that are ambiguous, she does not act blindly or impulsively. She consults her inner guidance, feeling into the energy of the moment and the resonance of potential outcomes. Decisions made in alignment with intuition carry a weight of certainty that reasoning alone cannot provide. Even when the path is not fully visible, she moves with confidence because she has already attuned herself to the subtle currents of possibility. She understands that intuition is rarely loud or dramatic. It is quiet, persistent, and often asks for patience and reflection before action. In learning to recognize and honor this quiet wisdom, she cultivates a power that transcends logic, a strength that is rooted in awareness rather than force. Her intuition also protects her emotional well-being. She senses when someone's presence is draining, when energy is misaligned, or when intentions are self-serving. She does not dismiss these feelings as overreaction or paranoia. She treats them as valuable information about the world around her. This sensitivity allows her to set boundaries without guilt, to walk away from situations that do not serve her, and to engage only with people and experiences that align with her values. In doing so, she preserves her energy, her focus, and her inner peace. Intuition becomes a form of self-care, a means of honoring the subtle wisdom of her body and spirit, rather than allowing herself to be swept into patterns that compromise her integrity. Intuition is also an ally in the pursuit of growth and opportunity. She senses when a door is opening even before it is visible, when an idea or project resonates deeply with her inner calling, and when an encounter holds the potential for meaningful connection or transformation. She does not force situations or cling to outcomes. She allows the intuitive sense of timing and alignment to guide her forward. This reliance on inner knowing cultivates a life of synchronicity where choices unfold naturally, relationships deepen with authenticity, and achievements emerge not as a result of struggle alone, but as the reflection of alignment with her inner truth. She learns that forcing what is not ready to unfold is futile, and that waiting with awareness often leads to outcomes more profound than she could have imagined. Cultivating intuition requires stillness, reflection, and attentiveness. She spends time observing her thoughts, her feelings, and the patterns that arise in her life. She notices when a gut feeling appears, and she differentiates it from fear, desire, or impulse. She pays attention to the sensations in her body, the pull of curiosity, and the subtle emotional resonance that signals truth. Meditation, journaling, and mindful observation become tools to strengthen this inner guidance, creating a bridge between her conscious mind and the deeper wisdom that exists beyond words. With practice, intuition becomes a reliable companion, a source of clarity in the midst of confusion, a light in moments of uncertainty, and a teacher that gently guides her toward alignment. Intuition also nurtures discernment in relationships and social dynamics. She recognizes that not everyone speaks the language of honesty and alignment, and she does not rely solely on words or appearances to determine trust. Instead, she feels the energy, the subtle shifts, and the resonance of connection. She can sense when someone is genuine, when boundaries are respected, or when intentions are true, often long before external evidence emerges. This ability allows her to engage with the world from a place of clarity and confidence, reducing the risk of manipulation, disappointment, or entanglement in games. Her interactions become rooted not in reaction, but in conscious choice, guided by an inner knowing that respects her value and honors her discernment. Ultimately, intuition is not a mere tool for decision-making. It is the language of alignment, the expression of self-respect, and the foundation of empowerment. She moves through life with a quiet confidence, trusting the wisdom that arises within, even when others may question or misunderstand it. She does not seek to justify her feelings or validate her perceptions through external approval. Instead, she trusts the subtle nudges, the quiet guidance, and the deep resonance that emerges when she is attuned to herself. In this way, intuition becomes a source of liberation, a reminder that true guidance lies not in the noise of the outside world, but in the steady, profound knowing that arises when she listens. Actions are the language of truth, a force far more revealing than words could ever be. A smart woman knows that promises, declarations, and intentions hold little weight unless they are mirrored by consistent behavior. She observes carefully, noticing not what is spoken in moments of convenience, but what is demonstrated over time in circumstances both easy and challenging. Words are fleeting. They can be charming, persuasive, or even deceptive. Actions, however, leave a trail, a tangible reflection of values, priorities, and integrity. A woman attuned to this truth does not fall for verbal allure or superficial displays of affection. She measures reality by patterns, by the alignment between words and deeds, and she trusts the evidence of action over the gloss of rhetoric. In relationships, this principle becomes both a shield and a guide. She watches for gestures that reveal consistency, effort made without expectation, respect shown without manipulation, support offered without calculation. It is not the grandiose declarations or the poetic promises that convince her, but the quiet acts repeated over time, the call made when it matters, the presence offered in moments of difficulty, the respect for her boundaries without hesitation or complaint. She notices when actions contradict words, when attention is inconsistent, or when effort is conditional. In these moments, she does not excuse or rationalize. She observes and recalibrates, understanding that true alignment cannot be built on speech alone. Actions are the truth that cannot be faked indefinitely, and she honors that truth in the way she engages with others and the choices she makes about their place in her life. Beyond relationships, the principle that actions speak louder than words extends to every corner of her life. In her career, her ambitions, her creative pursuits, and her personal growth, she recognizes that talking about change, intention, or commitment is meaningless without follow-through. Plans without execution remain illusions, dreams without steps remain unfulfilled, and promises to oneself without action are quietly destructive. She cultivates discipline, turning intention into movement, thought into deed, and vision into reality. She understands that results are not achieved through declarations, but through consistent, deliberate effort that demonstrates dedication, focus, and alignment with purpose. Every choice to act, no matter how small, becomes a testament to her values and her integrity, a reflection of the woman she is committed to becoming. Actions also reveal character in moments of challenge. Words can be rehearsed, polished, or manipulated, but behavior under pressure, in discomfort, or when consequences matter, is far more revealing. A smart woman observes how others respond when faced with difficulty, inconvenience, or moral choice. She notices whether promises hold when the easy path is no longer available, whether integrity persists when no one is watching, and whether effort is offered without expectation of reward. These are the subtle markers of authenticity, the quiet signatures of character that cannot be fabricated. She trusts the evidence of action in these moments above all, knowing that words may only hint at intention, but behavior exposes truth. The principle that actions speak louder than words also informs the way she expresses herself. She does not rely on empty speech to convey her value, desires, or boundaries. Instead, she embodies her truth through the way she moves through the world, the respect she shows herself and others, the care she takes with her energy, the consistency she maintains in her commitments, and the grace with which she navigates challenges. Her presence becomes a living testament to her values, a demonstration of integrity that requires no explanation or justification. She understands that her choices, behavior, and consistency communicate more clearly than any argument, any persuasion, or any rhetoric ever could. In this way, her life becomes a statement, a visible reflection of her inner truth, and a subtle teaching to those around her that alignment between words and deeds is the foundation of trust and respect. Moreover, she recognizes that actions shape perception, influence outcomes, and create momentum. Words may inspire or motivate temporarily, but sustained action builds credibility, earns trust, and manifests results. She understands that influence is not granted through charm or eloquence alone, but through consistent demonstration of ability, integrity, and dedication. This awareness allows her to navigate her world strategically, choosing where to invest her effort and attention, and recognizing that each action she takes contributes to the reality she inhabits. She becomes intentional not only with what she says, but, more importantly, with what she does, knowing that each act is a reflection of her values and a signal to the world of the standards she upholds. A woman who honors this principle does not waste energy on excuses, justification, or attempts to explain away inconsistencies in others. She understands that reality is revealed through action, and that interpretation is less important than observation. She learns to watch, to measure, and to respond in accordance with what is actually done rather than what is claimed. Her discernment sharpens with time, intuition aligns with observation, and she develops the ability to recognize authenticity in all its forms. She does not demand perfection, nor does she expect grand displays of virtue. She simply recognizes alignment between words and deeds, and she aligns her presence, her energy, and her commitment accordingly. In this way, actions speak louder than words becomes a guiding principle of power, clarity, and sovereignty. It allows her to navigate relationships with discernment, pursue goals with integrity, and live a life aligned with her truth. She learns that authenticity is not declared, it is enacted, and that the life she desires is built not by promises alone, but by the steady, consistent manifestation of intention through deliberate, aligned action. Emotional independence is the quiet mastery of the self, a profound understanding that one's inner peace, joy, and stability are not gifts to be granted by others, but states to be cultivated from within. A smart woman knows that reliance on external validation, approval, or affection is a fragile foundation, easily shaken by circumstance, mood, or the whims of others. She understands that to give her emotional power away, to allow her sense of worth or happiness to hinge upon someone else's actions, is to surrender sovereignty over her life. Emotional independence is the cultivation of freedom, the ability to feel deeply, love fully, and engage authentically without fear of loss, rejection, or judgment. It is not detachment in the sense of coldness, nor is it avoidance of connection. It is the conscious choice to anchor herself within, to honor her inner state, and to allow relationships, interactions, and experiences to exist as complements to her wholeness rather than determinants of it. A woman who embodies emotional independence recognizes that attachment to outcomes, approval, or the reactions of others is a subtle form of bondage. She notices when her energy is entangled in expectation, when anxiety arises from the need for affirmation, or when her mood is swayed by another's choices. In these moments, she pauses, reflects, and reconnects with the truth that her sense of self is unshakable. She does not blame others for her feelings, nor does she allow the world to dictate her emotional state. Instead, she cultivates awareness of her inner landscape, learning to identify the source of her emotions, distinguish between what belongs to her and what belongs to another, and respond with intentionality rather than reaction. Through this practice, she gradually releases the unconscious patterns of dependence that erode freedom, and she steps into a space of conscious empowerment where emotional resilience becomes her constant companion. Emotional independence is also a form of self-respect. When she interacts with others, she does so from a place of wholeness, not neediness. She gives, but she does not give from emptiness. She loves, but she does not love from fear or desperation. She engages authentically, without manipulation or compromise of her values, understanding that the quality of her relationships is strengthened when both parties interact as whole beings. She recognizes that clinging, pleading, or seeking constant reassurance diminishes the integrity of her presence and distorts the natural flow of connection. By standing firmly within her emotional center, she creates relationships that are balanced, reciprocal, and rooted in respect rather than dependence. This independence also requires discernment and courage. She must navigate the delicate balance between openness and protection, between vulnerability and self-preservation. Emotional independence does not mean shutting down feelings or refusing intimacy. It means engaging fully while maintaining the awareness that her emotional state is hers alone to govern. She observes the dynamics of relationships, noting when energy is misaligned, when attention is inconsistent, or when connection becomes a source of anxiety rather than nourishment. In these moments, she exercises the courage to release, redirect, or redefine her engagement, not out of punishment or withdrawal, but from an understanding that true freedom requires alignment with her inner truth. Her choice to maintain emotional sovereignty is not a denial of intimacy. It is an affirmation of her value, her dignity, and her commitment to herself. Emotional independence also manifests in her ability to remain grounded in the face of life's uncertainties. She experiences disappointment, loss, and heartbreak, yet she does not allow these experiences to define or destabilize her. She grieves, she feels, and she processes, but she does so within the boundaries of self-awareness and self-compassion. She understands that pain is inevitable in life, yet suffering becomes optional when one maintains a connection to one's inner stability. By cultivating this equilibrium, she transforms adversity into opportunity, learning from experience without being consumed by it. Emotional independence allows her to navigate change and uncertainty with grace, poise, and a sense of continuity that does not depend on external circumstances. Moreover, emotional independence is a gateway to authenticity and clarity. When she is no longer bound by the need for external validation, she is free to make decisions that align with her values, priorities, and long-term well-being. She does not compromise to please others, nor does she acquiesce to pressure, manipulation, or social expectation. Her actions, words, and choices emerge from a place of truth, not fear. She is able to communicate clearly, set boundaries confidently, and pursue her path without the distortion of emotional dependence. In this space, her relationships work and life unfold with integrity, as her interactions are informed by conscious choice rather than unconscious need. Emotional independence also fosters resilience and inner peace. She develops the ability to navigate the emotional landscapes of others without being pulled into turbulence or chaos. She can empathize, support, and engage with presence and compassion. Yet she does so without losing herself in the process. She recognizes that maintaining her own emotional equilibrium enhances her capacity to contribute meaningfully to the world around her, rather than depleting her energy in reactive cycles of expectation and disappointment. Each act of self-regulation, awareness, and conscious engagement reinforces the foundation of her freedom, allowing her to remain unshaken, present, and empowered regardless of the outer circumstances. Ultimately, emotional independence is a practice of sovereignty. It is the recognition that her inner state is a sanctuary, a space she can cultivate, protect, and return to at any moment. She understands that no one else can provide the stability, clarity, or peace that comes from within. By anchoring herself in this truth, she moves through life with freedom, grace, and a quiet authority, experiencing relationships, opportunities, and challenges fully while remaining sovereign over her own emotional landscape.